I want you to just picture something for a moment.
Okay.
You are standing in a totally quiet, secluded courtyard. It is evening. There is this brilliant, heavy, full moon hanging low in the sky, and you are just listening.
Setting the scene. I like it.
Right. You hear the wind rustling through the trees, the low, steady hum of insects in the grass.
Yeah.
Maybe you are watching mandarin ducks play in a still pond.
Oh, wow.
Or, perhaps it is raining, that heavy, rhythmic kind of rain beating down on broad, green plantain leaves.
That sounds incredible, honestly.
It is. And in that exact moment, stripped of all your daily concerns, you feel this complete melting of your body and soul into nature. It is this overwhelming, unforgettable taste of oneness with all things, everlasting, unbroken joy.
Which is, it sounds like the absolute pinnacle of human peace.
Exactly.
Is the kind of pristine serenity that most of us spend our entire lives, just hoping to catch even a fleeting glimpse of.
Yeah, we really do.
We chase it through meditation retreats, expensive vacations, quiet weekend mornings. We're always trying to capture that specific feeling of being completely unburdened.
We do. And today, we are exploring a source that uses that exact stunning imagery of the natural world to set you up for, well, one of the most radically counterintuitive arguments about human existence you will ever encounter.
Oh, absolutely.
We are doing a deep dive into a really provocative 2019 essay by an author named Shutham Heng. It was translated by Kinyu and edited by Carrier.
And the title alone is just wild.
It is a total record scratch. The title is Special Relationships Between People Will Ruin Their Lives.
Yeah, it really doesn't hold back.
No, it doesn't. The mission of this deep dive is to rigorously examine this text's highly controversial answer to a question we all wrestle with. Like, why are we so stressed, so hopelessly busy, and so utterly overwhelmed in our day-to-day lives?
Because that underlying question is universal, right?
Right.
We are constantly checking the clock, auditing our calendars, and asking ourselves, where has our time gone? Like, what on earth are we actually achieving with all this exhaustion?
And usually we blame things like our jobs.
Right, exactly. When we attempt to diagnose that modern malaise, we point the finger at external structural forces, we blame economic pressures, we blame the relentless pace of modern technology, the endless notifications on our screens.
Sure.
But this author proposes a culprit that is entirely different and, honestly, deeply unsettling.
Yeah, it really is.
The text argues that it is not your smartphone or your boss stealing your peace. It is the people you love.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if an author is going to make the claim that human connection is ruining our lives, they need a very strong foundation to build on.
They absolutely do.
And this essay starts by doing exactly that. It paints this incredibly tragic, almost painfully poetic view of human existence.
It creates a massive contrast, doesn't it?
It does. A contrast between the eternal, unchanging beauty of nature, the mountains, the rivers, the ducks in the pond, and the exhausting, ultimately futile busyness of human life.
We are essentially framed as tragic figures who are entirely missing the point of our own existence.
Yeah, the author uses these sweeping historical and poetic laments to emphasize how temporary our daily struggles are against the backdrop of deep time.
There is that one specific quote in the text.
Oh, about the palaces.
Yes. The palaces of Qin and Han are now but grazing land for cattle and sheep.
Man, that is heavy.
Right. If you think about the sheer mechanics of that reality, it is staggering. These were massive, world-defining empires, built through unimaginable human sweat and suffering and political maneuvering.
Decades of frantic human ambition.
Exactly. And the ultimate result, cows are chewing cud over the rubble. The author really forces us to project our own modern frantic lives onto that same timeline.
And it isn't just about ancient palaces turning to dust either. The text makes this deterioration incredibly personal, like physically personal.
It brings it right down to our own bodies.
Yeah, it is about us physically degrading while we stress over our obligations. The author quotes a line grieving over snow-white hair that once was silk black.
Ouch. Yeah.
And describes human worry as something that flows endlessly, like a river of spring water flowing eastward. It is just this mechanical force that never stops eroding us.
But the best metaphor is the snail one, right?
Oh, it is my absolute favorite metaphor in the entire text. The idea that in our daily struggles, we are, quote, colonizing a snail's horn, competing for a flash in time.
The snail's horn imagery just perfectly isolates the absurdity of human conflict.
It really does.
From our grounded daily perspective, our arguments, our career ladders, our social standing, they feel like these massive, all-important territories that we simply must conquer.
Right, like life or death stakes.
But if you zoom out to a cosmic scale, we are basically microscopic organisms fighting a brutal, exhausting war on the tiny, fragile antenna of a snail.
And the war is over in a microsecond.
Exactly. The text is asking us to seriously evaluate the actual stakes of our anxiety.
It makes me think about how often we put our heads down and just grind through the week. It's like a frantic beehive. The text asks, when they have sipped from 100 flowers and made honey, for whom is this toil?
That is a great analogy.
If we are running on this exhausting treadmill every single day, entirely ignoring the sprouting grass and the blooming willows right outside our windows, we have to ask ourselves, who exactly are we generating all this effort for?
And that question serves as the pivot point for the entire essay. The text asks you to fast forward your life and confront your inevitable future regrets.
Just skip right to the end.
Basically, yeah. Imagine reaching the age of 60, finding yourself physically weak, and looking back on the sum total of your experiences.
That is a sobering thought.
The author asks, who took away our teenage time? Who killed our youth? Who made our middle age toil around?
It is a profound sense of wasted time, and it demands an explanation.
Right. If we accept the premise that we have spent our only life sweating over a snail's horn, someone or something has to be responsible.
Well, if we accept that premise, the author's diagnosis is just staggering. The text explicitly states that the ones who killed your youth are not corporate overlords or politicians.
Not at all.
They are, and I am quoting here, your parents, your children, your grandchildren, husbands, wives, friends, lovers, brothers, sisters, and buddies.
It is a sweeping indictment of literally every meaningful human connection we are capable of forming.
It leaves no one out.
No, it groups all of these under the umbrella term special relationships. And according to the text, these specific people, the ones we cherish and prioritize above all else, are the precise mechanisms of our ruin.
They are the reason we worry day and night.
Yes, they make it hard to sleep, they keep us restless, and leave us constantly on guard, trembling in fear.
The text even argues that these special relationships force people to take massive risk, right? Like breaking the law and ultimately destroying their own futures.
Yeah, just to protect those connections.
But wait, doesn't this entire argument just strip away the very thing that makes us human in the first place? Well, I mean, a life without pain or worry sounds peaceful on paper, sure. But a life without love, without family, without close friends, that is completely sterile.
You're saying the cure is worse than the disease.
Exactly. You are avoiding the pain of loss by refusing to ever have anything worth losing. It feels like throwing the baby out with the bathwater just to avoid a little splashing.
Well, what's fascinating here is how the author would respond to that. They would argue that the baby in your scenario is just an illusion of security, and the bathwater is actually a slow-acting poison.
Okay, that is a dark way to look at it.
It is, but to understand the text's logic, we have to look at the mechanics of empathy. In our standard societal view, empathy is a virtue, right? Caring deeply about someone else is the hallmark of a good person.
Yeah, of course.
But this text reframes empathy as the ultimate existential liability. The moment you forge a special relationship, your psychological boundaries dissolve. Their problems are no longer external events, they are your internal crises.
So it's a structural vulnerability.
Yes, exactly.
Think of it like a neighborhood electrical grid. If you live completely off the grid, powering your own house with your own solar panels, a storm down the street doesn't affect you.
You are safe and isolated.
Right. But the moment you forge a special relationship, you are patching your house into a shared grid. Sure, you get the shared warmth, but if your partner's house shorts out or your child's house gets struck by lightning, the power surge travels straight down the wire and burns your house down too.
That is a perfect analogy. You have exponentially increased your surface area for a blackout.
Every new connection is a new risk.
Every new special relationship is a new wire connecting you to potential disaster. Their illness, their nightmares, their frustrations, their legal troubles.
Even their literal pains and itching, right. The text specifically calls that out.
It does. All of it travels down that wire and dictates your state of mind. And to drive this home, the text poses a really fascinating thought experiment.
The island scenario.
Yes. Imagine that you live entirely alone on an uninhabited island. You have plenty of food, your basic physiological needs are met, but absolutely no one in the world cares whether you live or die.
That sounds incredibly lonely.
It does. But the author asks, if you disappeared tomorrow and no one would shed a tear, in that state of absolute emotional isolation, would you still experience the level of anxiety and dread you carry right now?
I mean, I think most people, if they are being ruthlessly honest, would have to say no.
Right.
Because without a family to provide for, without a partner's health to worry about, without the complex social dynamics of maintaining friendships, a massive percentage of daily human stress just evaporates.
It just
You wouldn't be
vanishes.
agonizing over a career ladder. You would just be watching the sunsets and listening to the rain on the plantain leaves.
Precisely. The engine driving your misery loses its fuel entirely. But the text does not stop at the theoretical drain of emotional energy.
No, it gets much more literal.
It does. To prove that special relationships are a fatal flaw in the human design, the author brings in extreme historical examples of connection causing literal physical destruction.
Yeah, the essay shifts from quiet philosophical pondering into some incredibly dark realities about the collateral damage of connection.
It gets intense.
The first example the author leans on is this ancient legal punishment known as the implication of 9 generations.
This is where that structural vulnerability we talked about earlier becomes lethal.
Yeah.
In certain ancient legal systems, if one person committed a severe crime, like treason against the state, the punishment did not just fall on the individual offender.
Because the state recognized the shared grid.
Exactly. They saw that the person was part of a shared grid. So the punishment traveled down the wires of those special relationships, implicating their entire bloodline up and down the family tree.
And the text highlights the sheer horror of this mechanism. It points out that a young child, or even a servant woman working for the family, would be executed simply because the boy's father or the woman's master made a terrible mistake.
It is brutal.
The text asks why. Because this child had a special relationship with his father, or this servant had a special relationship with her master.
They didn't commit a crime at all.
No. Their connection was the crime. The relationship itself functioned as a literal death sentence.
And the author proves this isn't just some ancient barbaric practice by pointing to modern equivalents, too.
Yeah.
Like landslide-style corruption.
Right.
When a high-ranking provincial governor is arrested, the damage doesn't stop with him. Suddenly, everyone who had a special relationship with him gets dragged into the investigation and potentially into prison.
Everyone in their network.
Yeah, all their favors, loyalties, and shared interests. The corruption functions like a landslide, precisely because the earth is so tightly bound together by roots. If you pull one tree down, the whole hillside gives way.
So what does this all mean? I mean, the text provides an even more intimate, terrifying example to scale this up. It details this grim anecdote about a man who traveled all the way to Australia specifically to murder a woman.
It is a chilling story.
The essay asks the obvious question, like, why did he do that? And the answer is solely because they had a special relationship.
That is the only reason.
The author's point is chillingly logical. If they had remained absolute strangers, she would still be alive. When you look at all these examples together, the author is showing us that human connection is a systemic risk.
A huge risk.
If you stand completely alone, you only fall if you personally trip. But if you are tied to 10 other people and one of them steps off a cliff, the ropes drag you all into the abyss.
The author is entirely uncompromising on this front. Society encourages us to enthusiastically build these connections. We network, we date, we join communities.
We think we are building a safety net.
Exactly. We forge these deep bonds under the illusion of safety. But according to the mechanics of this text, we are actively constructing our own traps. We are looking for trouble, anxiety, and sorrow.
The author uses a strikingly powerful phrase for it.
Yes. By building these relationships, people are, quote, looking for death, the death of life in the kingdom of heaven.
Okay, so if the author believes that forging connections guarantees our ruin, they must have an alternative in mind, right? They cannot simply expect humanity to vanish or exist in a perpetual vacuum.
They do have an alternative.
And the text does offer a vision of an ideal existence. It explores this deeply structured, hierarchical vision of heaven. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
To a modern listener, the mechanics of this heavenly existence sound almost exactly like the premise of a bleak sci-fi dystopia.
It really does. The essay defines the perfection of these higher realms entirely by the absence of human connection. The author posits that the very reason people yearn for life in heaven is because, by definition, heaven is the place where special relationships do not exist.
Let's look at the mechanics of these different heavenly tiers, because this is where the author's logic is really put to the test. First, there's a 1,000-year world.
The entry-level heaven.
Right. In this realm, the text states that people never even know who their fathers are. They spend only a few years with their mothers, and then they never see them again. There are no siblings. There was no need to make friends.
Just total isolation from the start.
Yeah. So in this realm, a child is systematically separated from their mother after a few years. How does that translate to heaven? I mean, to a modern ear, forced maternal separation sounds like profound trauma, not paradise.
It is definitely jarring. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, to understand why the author views this as paradise, we have to look at what biological lineage actually creates in our current world.
Okay, what does it create?
It creates a closed loop of obligation and hierarchy. You owe your parents a debt for raising you. Your children owe you for the sacrifices you make for them. Family units hoard resources to protect their own bloodline,
Mm,
which leads to nepotism, inequality, and tribal conflict.
I see where this is going.
By separating the child early and erasing the knowledge of the father, the thousand-year world severs the chain of biological obligation. Without a family unit to protect, there is no reason to hoard, no reason to go to war, and no reason to exploit others.
Wow.
The trauma you mentioned only exists if you possess the attachment in the first place. The author's heaven removes the attachment entirely.
That makes a chilling kind of sense, actually. It removes the friction by removing the moving parts.
Exactly.
And the text escalates this concept even further. In the 10,000-year world, people have no biological parents at all. They just exist entirely untethered from biological lineage or physical consequence.
Just spontaneous existence.
Yeah. And then, at the absolute zenith, you reach the Celestial Islands continent. In this highest realm, the text declares that absolutely no special relationships exist between any two individuals. None. Zero.
Everyone is just a perfectly polite, entirely detached stranger.
Which is such a wild concept.
It is the ultimate philosophical trade-off the author is presenting. It is rooted in a concept of radical non-attachment.
Right.
The text argues that the moment you begin to form a special relationship in your consciousness, whether that relationship is based on deep emotion or just a mutual alignment of interests, you anchor yourself to the earth.
You weigh yourself down.
Yes. You tether yourself to the messy, painful, exhausting reality of human vulnerability. To drift upward toward eternal joy, to actually inhabit that serene courtyard we visualized at the beginning, you must systematically sever all emotional ties.
So true, unbroken peace requires total detachment.
It is an absolute zero-sum game.
You can choose to have the messy, painful, exhausting warmth of a family, a partner, and lifelong friends, or you can have the pristine, unbroken, lonely peace of the Celestial Islands.
But you cannot have both.
The text refuses to let you have both. You cannot grip the snail's horn and embrace the eternal cosmos at the same time.
And that rigid dichotomy really forces the reader to confront the actual cost of their peace. We constantly complain about the stress in our lives, but we are rarely willing to surrender the relationships that generate it.
We have covered an immense amount of challenging philosophical ground today. We started by grounding ourselves in the beautiful sensory imagery of the natural world and confronted the tragic realization of how quickly our lives slip away into worry.
It has been quite a journey.
It really has. But then we waded into the intensely provocative claim that the very things we rely on to save us, our marriages, our friendships, our children, are the exact mechanisms inviting ruin and exhaustion into our lives.
It completely subverts the foundational way we are taught to construct a meaningful life.
It forces you to audit your life through a completely alien lens. When you look at your social calendar, your text messages, or your upcoming family gatherings, this text asks you to see them not as sources of joy, but as potential vectors for suffering.
It is a heavy thought to carry.
So here's a challenge for you listening right now. The next time you find yourself losing sleep, tossing and turning in the middle of the night because you're deeply worried about a loved one's health, a friend's bad decision, or a partner's stress, think about that deserted island.
The thought experiment.
Yeah. Consider the author's thought experiment. Ask yourself honestly, are your connections grounding you, providing your life with a meaning that makes the inevitable stress worth enduring?
Or are they the literal reason you feel trapped on a treadmill?
Burning through your youth, entirely unable to just sit in a quiet courtyard and listen to the rain?
And that deeply personal question brings us to the author's cryptic, almost teasing final thought.
Oh, this part drove me crazy.
After meticulously tearing down the entire concept of human connection and proving its fatal flaws, the author claims that there is actually a way, a specific, functional mechanism to make everyone live beautifully and happily without relying on these special relationships.
So the author suggests that there is an actual blueprint for a society that functions perfectly without love or connection.
Yes, but the text does not reveal what it is.
Unbelievable.
Right at the moment of revelation, the author stops short. The essay concludes with the author admitting they will not share this secret mechanism because, to quote the text directly, I am also afraid of being scolded by people.
They drop this massive, paradigm-shifting philosophical bomb, diagnose the core of human misery, and then hide the cure simply because they want to avoid public backlash.
It is infuriating, I know, but it is also a brilliant way to force the reader to do the heavy lifting themselves.
It leaves us staring into a fascinating blank space.
It forces us to ask, what could that unspoken mechanism actually look like in our modern world? How could a society function, coordinate, and thrive with absolutely zero special relationships?
It's hard to even imagine.
And more importantly, if someone approached you today and offered you a button, a mechanism that would instantly erase all your special relationships, wiping away all the pain, all the worry, and all the agonizing heartbreak, but taking all the love with it.
In exchange for total, unbroken, eternal peace under a full moon.
Exactly. Would you press it?